All right, we are recording chapter 2 of that, specifically chapter 2 of The Phantom Menace. Um, it's interesting. This is again a chapter like the first one that isn't represented in the movie. So, yeah, and it is. I'll get to it. There's one thing that happens in it that I like, but because based on the movie, it doesn't seem to have bearing later on. I like how it's written there, but I would be inclined to say, yeah, it should be cut out because it seems to serve a purpose I don't think is worth trying to do right here. But anyway, first note is Watto will actually slip into Huttese because of its wealth of insulting adjectives. That's how it's actually described there, and I kind of like that. Just we do know he is multilingual. Actually, many of them are. But he will do that because it makes it easier for him to express how frustrated he is with Anakin and the pod racer having been so damaged. One thing interesting in the typesetting is it actually makes, when he does that, italic. So the Huttese is presented very clearly differently. And unfortunately, I'm letting my brother borrow the original trilogy book. Kind of want to check in that. I don't remember really any italics in any of it, which I find interesting. Because I mean, even though those were from the 70s, well, one was from the 70s, it they could have had italics, but I guess it is technically more complex to produce a book that way versus when this would have been written when chances are everything is just laser printer. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. I think laser printers are amazing. They're wonderful, but it still is. I could believe that is a reason why there's now italics being used in this, just because it's easy to do that with a laser printer. Whereas if you're using at least much older printing methods, that requires getting the italic pieces and putting them in. Or it might be a photolithography system, which again, I could believe italics might be harder to do some of that. Yeah, I'm not sure how it would have been printed, but sometimes the technology does dictate how you do things. And it's also why the scripts that I put together for taking the Word document that I'm writing in now and generating the LaTeX documents, the LaTeX files for me, and HTML files, why I have it set up the way I do, so it will actually carry over that formatting. Because that way I can actually use italics and not have to run through and figure out where in the LaTeX to put them and then where again in the HTML to put them for the ebook. So it really is such formatting like that. Improved technology does help you achieve it. Or it could just be that the publisher for the original trilogy just didn't want to use italics, assuming my memory is correct and that they weren't there. Anyway, yeah, so Anakin knows Watto's temper, and it is kind of funny where basically Anakin is just going to stand there stoically and take everything from Watto because he knows that Watto's going to calm down and this will all be fine. It's like, yeah, the racer's destroyed, but once it gets fixed, I'll be racing again, and that's what Anakin wants to do. But one thing interesting about it is it's not just Anakin that knows Watto's personality here. It's also Shmi, his mother. And she actually confuses Watto into agreeing that Anakin shouldn't race. Because Watto understands that Anakin wants to race, and so he basically threatens him by saying, oh, no, I'm going to find somebody else. Yeah, I just realized something. There we go. I'm going to find somebody else to race. And Shmi is like, perfect. That's a great idea. He shouldn't have to race anymore. What? I mean, it's like, because obviously she wants to protect him, wants to protect her son, and so it's like, no, you shouldn't be racing. Good, Watto, that's a good idea, which confuses him. It's kind of funny. And it almost, in the movie, I'm not far enough into the book to know for certain, but in the movie there is a certain aspect of a family dynamic with them where Watto is kind of a father figure for Anakin. He does care for him. even though Anakin is his slave, is his property, and does also act that way, but he doesn't wish any kind of harm to come to him, and I'm trying to remember where it is. But at one point in the movie, he is like, all right, you can go have the rest of the day off. He's like, he's just saying, yeah, you can go play now. That's fine. He's like, that's, if it's, Anakin is just his property and doesn't care about him, he wouldn't do that. So, so right now it does kind of seem like you have a certain kind of family dynamic there. With Watto not out of place in it, even though he isn't fully in it, doesn't fully have a place in it, it seems. So it will be interesting to see how that develops, because it is possible that the Watto character will be harsher in the book than what we see in the movie. But Shmi's character is definitely interesting because of how she is also manipulating, well, not manipulating him, but she knows how he thinks as well and is playing with him a little bit there. Yeah, I'll leave that for later. Because there was one thing about Shmi that I do want to talk about, but that I have as a later note. The next thing is actually I don't know. I know why it's in the book, but if we don't get a payoff for it later, it's going to annoy me. And make me feel it shouldn't have been in here. So, Watto tells Anakin, go and repair the pod race, so all. Okay, so he goes. By the way, I'm still feeling a little sick, in case it's clear in my voice. Yes, that is the case. So Anakin goes over to do that, and the sun is going down, and his two friends appear. I don't remember their names, but you actually do get the human's name in the movie. And the young Rodian, his name is Wald. I don't recall that being in the movie. But, in any case, they sneak in through a broken part of the fence and basically convince Anakin that, let's, head out. The Wald here has somehow gotten enough money. We don't know how. He's just saying he has it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But let's go and get our, favorite drink at that one shop. And Anakin is like, nah, I really shouldn't. But okay, let's go. So they go. And Wald does actually have the money. Buys the drink, so they go outside then and apparently walk some distance away, plop down and are drinking there. And they all want to be pilots. We obviously know that Anakin does become one, and that he desperately does want to be a pilot. And as they're talking, then suddenly a voice says, I prefer the Z-95 Headhunter. Like, that's his preferred ship in this. And then they all stop and look up, and what they see is who is ultimately identified as a retired Republic pilot. And it is kind of a nice moment where, basically this older man is hearing these young boys, talking about wanting to be pilots, and he has the experience, and so he decides, I'm going to be nice to them, be kind to them, and, tell them about it, tell them some of the adventures that, are out there for them, because he himself has experienced them. But he also then, takes them back and is like, I haven't had one of those drinks in years, so let's, I'll go have one and eye them around another round as well. And on its own, it's actually really nice, because it is, kind of a sweet thing for this man to do, because he is trying to encourage these young boys to something that is very important to him, and he's sharing that with them as well. So it's a good moment. But one thing that happens in it a few times is him basically saying repeatedly, you really impressed me, boy, about Anakin and how he was in the pod race. It's like, okay, that's fine. He was impressive. Because again, we get the whole, no human is able to do this, and Anakin is. And now we've got this guy who's like, they told me I couldn't do the Kessel Run, but I decided I wanted to do it, so I did it anyway. Things like that, and it's like, the reason why I don't like this is we already had so much in the first chapters, just talking about how Anakin is great. He's an amazing pilot. He's a great pilot. It's like, you're showing it there. That's fine. We don't need this random guy talking him up as well. Unless he comes up later. He could come up later. That's fine. Like, maybe he somehow ends up at Naboo, helping there. Or maybe when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and the Queen arrive on Tatooine, they run into him again. And that's fine. they could be setting that up. I'd be perfectly good with that. But as it is right now, where we're basically just talking up Anakin, along with having this nice moment of sharing between them, I'm serious. I wouldn't include it. I would have cut it out. I would have come up with something else to help them pass the time there, because it just it doesn't flow well, I think. Because it's just, we get it. He's a skilled pilot. We know this. We've also... Okay, no, I can't really say that. I was going to say we already know it from the original trilogy, but technically we don't. Well, the movies we don't, because Anakin's piloting skills... Well, no, no, that is true. Obi-Wan does talk about them. Obi-Wan does mention him being a great pilot in A New Hope. Also in the book for A New Hope, we have Obi-Wan talk about it. We have Blue Leader, who's Red Leader in the movie, talk about it. And then we also have in Return of the Jedi, it mentions that Leia is a good pilot, like her father, as well. That basically runs in the family. And that was one of those things I criticized, because, like, well, we've never established that she has any experience piloting. But anyhow, I know it just feels like we're being a bit heavy-handed here, so I'm not the happiest about it. But the moment itself, that I do like. I do think that is being done well, and such an interaction is not unreasonable to happen, and would be something very positive for them, and especially because it's also one of the boys, I don't remember which one, kind of sort of mocks Anakin by saying that, well, you're a slave, so this will never happen, and the man says, well, everyone born into this world one way dies another. You're born into the world as one thing and dies as something else. So it's like, don't worry, yeah, you're a slave now, but that doesn't mean you're always going to be a slave. You're not necessarily going to die a slave. So you can definitely still do this. Again, that's a good moment to have. It's just the whole... I feel like if they had cut it down to just be him talking about his experience being a pilot and such, sharing that with them, that would have been fine. That would have been good. We don't need the talking about Anakin. I don't think it's necessary. So after this, Anakin comes back home, and you have another moment, well, more than a moment, of him and his mother talking. And it's actually really nice, and the way it also talks about how Anakin never lies to her about anything. So, why are you late coming home? Well, I ditched Watto, the work for Watto, to go hang out with my friends, have the drink, ran into this guy, he shared these, all that. He's telling her everything, because he never lies to her. And just, I really do like the relationship that is being described between the two. It does seem a very true and authentic relationship and love between them, this mother-son relationship. So I really do like that. I think it's being done very well. Hopefully that will maintain. I have no reason to believe it won't. So I'm looking forward to it being maintained and potentially even being improved upon from what I've already seen. Now for this last note that is just... It's a worthy question. And even in the movie, what does Shmi do? She is also Watto's slave. We know what Anakin does. He repairs things and does talk about, again, how basically, yes, he has the Force. He can sense things before they happen. And also does mention she's the only one that he has told this to, so she's the only one that's aware of that. Not necessarily with the context of the Force, but that he can do this. But also describes how he has an innate talent for building things, for putting things back together. Which I'm not sure. It was talked about it. I think it was talked about near enough that it was like almost implying that this is also part of the Force. I'm not sure why. It could just be he's very technically minded. Not sure. I'm just a little... I get how it's helpful later on. I'm just trying to think, is there a greater justification for it than that? That's all I'm kind of curious about. And it's only a curiosity, not at all a criticism. So yeah, we know, and also Anakin does the pod racing, which it is also pointed out that even though Watto does say that, no, I'm going to get somebody else, Anakin knows, no, he's not, because Watto's cheap. If he has me do it, it's free. If he has somebody else do it, he has to hire that person. So it's not happening. But what does Shmi do? Now, true that there is plenty of more time in the book to have it explained what she does, which maybe she works in the shop. In the movie, though, I don't even think you see her in the shop. In this, she actually is. Because when Watto is initially scolding Anakin right at the beginning of the chapter, that is at the shop, and she is there. She is standing against the wall there, waiting on them. But what is she for Watto? Does she work in the shop? Which is not unreasonable that, have somebody else tending the shop, tending the patrons of it. She may be cleaning in there. Don't know. Could she be more of a domestic for him? Somebody that cleans his home or prepares his meals, things like that. That's not unreasonable either. But for how we're actually seeing things presented, it seems more so to be, she just takes care of Anakin. And that's it. That there's no other existence for her but that. And it's not much of a slave in that case, is she? I mean, it's not unreasonable. It even makes a point. She cleans their home very well and keeps it very neat, despite it really not being much. It's well, it would be reasonable that she also does that for Watto with his home. But in that case, it would also be reasonable that she and Anakin would have slave quarters of his home, as opposed to being in their own separate home elsewhere. I mean, just as a practical matter, that would be easier and probably cheaper for Watto as well. Since he'd have to, in some way, be paying for that home. I mean, it's property, right? It's got to be owned somehow. But anyway. But yeah, I don't know. Will be interesting to see if we at all learn what it is that she does. Because if it's just left at nothing, then it's that just seems really doubtful to me. I mean, it's Watto is greedy. That is very much part of his character. He is going to want to get everything he can out of what he has, so she'd be doing something. She would somehow be productive for him. So yeah, I don't know. It is just a question, and I hope it gets answered, because if not, it is kind of a curious plot hole to have. But I do think if I were writing it, I would have it be that she cleans his home. Potentially also does, well, maybe fix some meals out, depend, because I could see Watto being nah, my diet is so different from what you could ever do, you're not touching it. Because he is, toy diary, and he's not a human. But I think it would be reasonable that she cleans his home, potentially also cleans the shop. And so when she comes home, she cleans there as well, because she's very competent at it. It's what potentially she has convinced herself she enjoys doing. Some people do enjoy cleaning. I'm just saying could also be she chooses that to be enjoyable, since she might not really enjoy it, but it helps her get through it all. But yeah, and just continuously cleaning. That would be perfectly fair, perfectly legitimate. It would also be it'd be interesting to get the history of the ownership for her. I'm trying to remember if that's ever expressed in the movie. How she came to be owned by Watto. Because I think it is at least implied in the movie that she and Anakin have always been owned together. So it's, basically the children of the slave belongs to the same owner. And so then that's how they've been going through together. But I don't remember if it's ever stated if Watto has owned her the entire time, or if he purchased her, somehow acquired her from someone else. Don't know. So yeah, I mean, it is that kind of technical stuff that I do kind of dig into, but it is, and potentially unnecessarily dig into, but it is just, I think, worthy to wonder what it is that she does, and knowing that history as well could help explain that. Also knowing how, because Anakin does seem very valuable. He's skilled with a pod racer, and any prior owner would be interested in that. And also he's skilled with technology. So again, another shop owner would want that. So, yeah. That actually would have been a better way. A better way to build up his skills is having a shop owner, another one, come and approach Anakin and try to talk to him about how he might be able to purchase him from Watto. And even be like, I'll purchase you and free you if you will be my employee then for this long period of time. You basically guarantee me that you will work for me for some period of time. I'll make you free. Could totally see something like that. And that way you could also talk up his skills in a way that makes more sense within the story than just random stranger. And also can be a topic then completely dropped and never comes up again, where it's like, no, I belong to Watto, or Watto will never do that. Or even just I've heard stories from other people that you've made this offer to, and they're no better off than slaves, and you don't let them leave. So it's like, you could do things there so that then that plotline drops, never comes up again, and you've still talked him up in a more reasonable way than random retired Republic pilot. What's he even doing on Tatooine kind of thing? I mean, yeah. See, this is why it's worth getting kind of technical, because sometimes you can find, maybe this pilot comes up later, as I said before, then it all makes sense. But if not, then I do think this alternate idea here would make more sense. It would flow better, and as I mainly am pointing out, it allows you to just drop it. Allows it to end, never comes up again, and you're good. All right. So I guess I will see you in the next one, and also I think I should admit something. At the end of the last video, I said that I think I will try a different schedule for these, where I have these videos come out a day or two after. Yeah, I forgot when I had the introduction video scheduled for this. Yeah. So it's going to be more like a week after. Sorry. I forgot I scheduled that a week. Well, basically a week from yesterday for me, which is when I recorded the last video. So it's like, oh, all right, I'll just have them coming out every day after. But yeah, so we'll see. I'll see about maybe when I finish Phantom Menace before I get to Attack of the Clones, I'll try to eat up that time so that they do come out a bit closer. Not that it necessarily matters, because I think ultimately the goal is just trying to, instead of have a dump of videos on Saturday, spread them out. We'll just see. We'll just see how it goes. But having this kind of buffer it helps me, because that way if I miss a day for whatever reason, I don't feel like, oh, I don't have something. But I also need to not have that fear, I think. Anyway, see you next time for Chapter 3.